Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, William Liu. A reminder, we are streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and on Sportsnet 360 between Monday to Friday, between 1 and 3 p.m. I'm joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong, and we have a special guest joining us for the second week in a row. We got Harrison Sanford inside the green room. Harrison, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Good to hear from you guys again.
You know, listen.
Feels like I just saw you. Huh?
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, because when we saw you last week when the Raptors were here, or when Philly was here, you know, I told you you're probably gonna come back here. You know, and your wish is granted.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, you're still at Are you still at the Eaton Center? What's going on, Harrison?
Oh, come on,
no, I'm back in the States, but I'll be on my way back soon.
Yeah,
awesome.
No doubt. Well, listen, you already gave us a little bit of the preview into what's going on in Philadelphia last time. And we will ask you about a series prediction again, even though I think last time you did have the Raptors winning the series. But I wanted to get like a general Sixers vibe from you because obviously you follow the team very closely. Obviously, you know, through the podcast I just saw, you just did one with Georges Niang. So, you know the players, you know the coaches, you know everything that's happening in Philly with this team. So I guess I wanted to start here. Like, what do you think is the feeling around the team in Philadelphia ahead of this matchup?
Oh, if you want to talk about the fan base is not excited, pessimistic, worried, all the kind of negative adjectives for the most part. I mean, obviously, you're always going to have your fans that are excited, but there is a growing sense of doubt that they could actually reach the expectations that maybe they had once the James Harden deal happened. I think everybody in the city of Philadelphia, and at least on Sixers Twitter, is aware of how good the Raptors are and have familiarity with that team. I would say, for the most part, if the Sixers can get past the Raptors, it looks pretty good because they avoid what I think are the three best teams in the East between the Bucks, Nets, and Celtics until at least the Eastern Conference Finals. But there's obviously going to be fans that are optimistic, but you can't ignore that some fans are definitely worried about how the series is going to match up, just because of the Raptors' length, the familiarity with who the Raptors are, and then obviously there's that Nick Nurse versus Doc Rivers factor, and everybody in the Sixers there's a large portion of Sixers fans who are down on Doc Rivers, and even if they get past the Raptors, then there's Eric Spoelstra, who's known, widely as a very good head coach. So not the elite vibes, at least coming from outside of the team going into this round one. But talking to Danny and George recently and having, got to spend some time with them in Toronto, the vibes inside the team are good, but the outside, not so much.
Yeah, we're calling him Glenn Rivers for the majority of the series, by the way, because out of respect of Nick Nurse's doctorate. So if you could make that change for us,
celebrate
Harrison.
education.
it would be appreciated. But I think it's interesting, Harrison. You talk about the vibes and the pressure, and I wonder, setting aside even this season, like this Sixers franchise, and I know the roster has turned over a lot, but there's a lot of baggage too, right? When it comes to past playoff history, especially in recent years. And like I think back to the Raptors teams, all those years when Kyle and DeMar were trying to break through, and I think year after year the pressure just kept building. Like how much do you think that's on the back of the fan base's minds in terms of the pressure coming into this playoff run?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a factor that can't be ignored. I mean, you're talking about a fan base that went through the process. All those years of purposely losing, and to be honest with you, what do they have to show for it outside of Joel Embiid and James Harden, which every fan who's wise is going to have to question how is he going to be 3-4 years from now if he does sign that max extension, if it's actually offered to him. So it's definitely weighing on the fan base, I would assume, and on top of that too. And I was doing a little bit of research last night as I was looking at the Sixers playoff history in the Joel Embiid era. There's not one playoff series that they won where you could say, man, they really had a hard-fought battle. They withstood the toughness of a playoff series, and they came out on top. Every series that they have won, pretty much they were supposed to win. There hasn't been a tough battle in the playoffs that they have overcome as of yet. So, that's part of the reason. And when I was speaking to Danny and George, and they were kind of talking about how much it would mean for them to beat the Raptors, because they might be the favorite, slight favorite, but they know it's a series that is actually going to make them better and is actually going to prove that they're going to be able to be successful in the playoffs. And they admit it. They know they're going to have to adjust. They know Nick Nurse is going to throw some things at them left and right, and adjustments will have to be made. And obviously, it's the elephant in the room. Doc Rivers' adjustments are something that's on the Summer Jam screen every postseason. So if they are able to get through it, if they're able to make those adjustments, I truly believe they will be a better team. And I truly believe they really have a good chance of winning it out of the East and maybe overall, but they have to prove it. And this is the perfect proving ground because Nick Nurse is the best I honestly feel like Nick Nurse is the best head coach for the Sixers to see if they want to win the title.
Right. Well, and listen, going back to that 2019 series, which obviously, you were on the right side for last time, Harrison, when we were all on the same side for that one. You remember that series? That was a real tactical battle. Now, of course, Glenn Rivers wasn't there. It was Brett Brown. But, there was a lot of adjustments going both ways. You saw early in the series Joel Embiid taking on that Pascal Siakam assignment. That kind of took Pascal out of the series, quite frankly, just because I don't think he had the skill set to deal with Joel at that time. Then you had the Raptors going with Serge and Mark at the same time, going with that super jumbo lineup. Kawhi was playing two guard, and that was allowing them to sort of flip the series. And then even Game 7, there were adjustments where Kawhi finally took on the Jimmy Butler assignment and really shut him down, in addition to scoring like 100 points and the game winner, right? So, that's the nature of a playoff series, I think, especially with a guy like Nick Nurse. But, when you look ahead to the series, so what's that first adjustment from the Sixers side going to be, if you had to predict?
I would say I would not be surprised if you saw they've used it sparingly this season, and obviously I don't know. I haven't gotten the game plan details just yet. I'll try my best to get them soon, and I won't make them public, but I'm just going to try and get them. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a zone from the 76ers. I mean, Matisse Thybulle is not going to play. I assume Matisse Thybulle, even if he can play the home games, I don't know how much he will actually play, because we know how Nick Nurse is going to treat Joel Embiid and use defenders from the Raptors, their long, lengthy defenders, to come and help and send doubles and send traps. So I don't know how much Matisse Thybulle is going to play. And if he's not on the court, then the Sixers don't have the ideal defensive personnel. So maybe you see a lot of zone. Maybe you see, can Precious Achiuwa continue to hit threes at this ridiculous rate against
don't leave him open. I mean, let's be real. Come on.
Yeah, for sure. Will Scotty Barnes hit threes? Where is Fred VanVleet at in terms of his 3-point percentage? I know ever since the All-Star break, his 3-point percentage has gone down to a noticeable mark. How is OG Anunoby? I know he hasn't played in a while. Like, is he in rhythm? Those are things. If I was Doc Rivers, or Glenn Rivers rather yet, I would check. I would check them out, use a zone every now and again just to throw off the Raptors' rhythm and see how they can operate in it. And if they hit threes, then maybe you have to switch it up. But that would be something I would not be shocked to see. But then again, I'm not a head coach. So
have the Sixers? So have the Sixers gone to a lot of zone this year, though?
Yeah, they have. They have?
Okay.
Not a lot, not a lot, but they have shown flashes of it. A lot of times they like to put Matisse at the top of the zone, and obviously he's not. Yeah.
He's disruptive.
He's not going to be playing as much. Yeah, for sure. They were real successful with it last year with Matisse and Ben Simmons. That was something scary for them. Right. But this year they haven't done it as much. But I would imagine, one would hope, that there's a lot of things that they're installing that they just don't put in games. Just because, Doc Rivers mentioned it. He said there's some things that they've been practicing that they haven't used in games as of yet in preparation for the playoffs. And I think most recently they were installing stuff like right before shoot-around or during shoot-around that they didn't use in a game, but they were using it, but they were installing it for playoff purposes, like a shoot-around right before a game. So, and I know they've had lengthy film sessions recently too. So even before the playoffs started. So there is the one thing that I'm sure they wish they had. They probably wish they had more time. James Harden is not like the Marc Gasol fit. Remember when Marc Gasol came and everything just fit perfectly?
Yep.
It's not the same with James. Everything kind of adjusts and changes. And that's also to the roster construction. That's a credit to the Raptors for having guys that can hit threes and play defense. You can shoot and you can play defense. You're interchangeable. There's not a lot of interchangeable parts on the Sixers roster. So them bringing in James Harden has made assimilating a bit more difficult.
Right. Now, I think, the guy who has, to me, it looks like has impacted the most with Harden's addition is Tobias Harris. Now, even going back to 2019, Tobias was always the guy who, okay, so Ben's here, he's ahead of him. Jimmy's here, he's ahead of him. Joel's here, so he was like the fourth option. Even honestly, they ran a lot of set actions for JJ Redick that season as well. So there were times where he was not involved, and I'm seeing the same patterns with him, with Tobias, and I guess I know that he can be fairly efficient offensively and definitely put up 20 efficient points against you. But I was looking back at the last two games. I mean, they're basically just parking him in the corner, and he's not really that involved. Is there any sort of sense that they want to involve him more? Is there, if obviously James and Joel are going to get double teamed, which let's be real, it's a Nick Nurse coach team. They will be double teamed, if not triple teamed. You would expect some of your like secondary guys to start scoring for you, and obviously Maxey is probably your prime option for that. But you got to figure Tobias at least has some sort of role to play.
Yeah, no, for sure. Tobias has actually played outside of this, maybe the last game or so, which, for real, in all honesty, is irrelevant.
Yeah.
He's actually played pretty well for the last 2-3 weeks in a catch and shoot form, working off of James Harden. He's gotten a lot better, a lot more comfortable at that. But he's still, every now and again, he still gets his rhythm shots. His rhythm shot might be the little pull up in the mid range, might get a small on him and get like a little over the shoulder jumper. I don't know if he's going to be able to get those rhythm shots in the Sixers series because there's so much length on that roster. Now, if somehow they could force a switch and he could potentially get Fred or Gary Trent Jr. on him in the post just to get his rhythm. Sometimes he just needs to hit one or two of those shots just to get the rhythm so he could get back to doing the catch and shoot shooting. But he's actually done pretty well with that. And if I'm Nick Nurse, the one thing that James Harden has done very well is pass the ball.
Yeah.
And we've seen there's been two James Hardens. So James Harden that plays very well because they send two at him and he starts spraying the ball around and all of a sudden all the shooters that the Sixers have start excelling. Or we've seen the James Harden when he gets switched onto, like Isaiah Stewart stayed in front of him when you do the switches. So, I'm not a coach, but I see what I see, and I think all Sixers fans who watch it intently have seen it. If you don't send two and if you just put the switch on him, I don't know if Harden's going to beat that man. Maybe he was reserving himself for the playoffs. We'll see. If he could actually beat, let's say, a Pascal Siakam, a OG Anunoby, a Scotty Barnes in a one-on-one, if they switch on to him, if he could do that, then the Sixers are going to win.
Yeah,
but I don't know if he's going to do that. Nobody knows because nobody knows what type of James Harden we're going to get. It's going to flip the whole series. They're obviously going to double Embiid, but if they also feel like they need to double Harden, then it's a wrap.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the thing too is they're gonna really need to find a way to manage the minutes without Embiid on the floor, right? Like, look, Embiid, as good as he is, Alex, what were you saying? He sweats like Patrick Ewing?
Yeah, he's always sweating like
he
Patrick
looks exhausted
Ewing
all the time
after 32 minutes. But like all jokes aside, like we've seen, like especially when the Raptors have played them, like they have been able to kind of just wear them down. Like he tires in the second half.
It happened in the last game that you were here in Toronto for, where Sixers went up to an early lead and then Embiid sits, and then started the second quarter. It's like James Harden basically ISO show, and the Raptors were able to climb back into the game really quickly. So what, like, let's say Embiid can give you 38 quality minutes, which I think he probably can do in a playoff setting, right? What are you doing in the next 10 minutes? Because for a lot of games in Philadelphia over the years, and I think this is probably one of Philadelphia fans' like main frustrations, is they just haven't been able to find like a manageable strategy for those 10 minutes where Embiid's not on the floor. Like you'll literally see them lose games in those 10 minutes. So what is Philly's strategy for those 10 minutes?
Man, I think if you ask a Sixers fan, they'll probably tell you in that Brooklyn trade to get James Harden shipping away Ben Simmons, if they could have traded away Thibault and kept Andre Drummond, they probably would say 100% to that now.
Really?
They really, if you just think about at least for this series, right?
Okay.
It's just, I think seeing the same thing happen again could be very frustrating for the Sixers, for a Sixer fan. With that being said, Doc Rivers has said against smaller teams he will use Paul Reed.
Okay.
Now, Paul Reed is a talented young big, but he did not get the reps that he probably should have to be prepared for a moment like this. He's way more agile than DeAndre Drummond, way more agile than Paul Millsap. He's got hop steps. He's got the ability to finish. This year, he guarded Giannis Antetokounmpo very well, but didn't really. But again, just for whatever reasons, could not get the consistent time. Did not get as many opportunities to fail for as important as he is to the team. Because we all know how that 2019 series went. If the Sixers play the Raptors to a draw when Joel Embiid is out the game, they win the series. But they were so horrible in such a small span of minutes, the Sixers were, that the series, they couldn't win the series. Yeah, it still took a remarkable shot and it took a tremendous effort. But nonetheless, if they would have just played better in those non-Embiid minutes, they would have won. I don't know how it's going to pan out. You could see them potentially go small with George Niang, Tobias Harris.
No,
I don't know how
please.
it's going to play.
No, if Glenn Rivers, if you're listening to this, please do that. Please go small with George Niang at center. Please, I beg of you.
I don't know how
The Raptors
might
might grab 80% of offensive rebounds if he plays center.
Yeah, no, it's a problem for sure. I think one of the ways to solve it though, and maybe Raptors fans will see it this series.
Yeah.
And I know that he was on the trading block last year. It was a big rumored trade with Kyle Lowry. This kid Tyrese Maxey's really good.
Oh yeah, no, we know.
Really
we know. Listen, I think some people here are more afraid of him than James Harden, which is kind of irrational. But like, he's going to be guarded a lot in single coverage. That's what we saw on a lot of this. The tape of the last two games is that the Raptors would even help off of Maxey to a degree, but that guy can attack closeouts. He can shoot the three. He extends out, to the top of the floor. He's quick. He finishes through contact. I don't know. I'm worried about him. The only thing I guess is like defensively though. Don't you feel like he's going to give some of that back?
Yeah, that's the story of the Sixers roster.
Yeah,
they don't have enough two-way players. I mean, Danny is the only recognized. I'm not going to say that. Tobias Harris is a solid defender, and James Harden could actually be a good defender at times too. But Danny's probably the only recognized 3-and-D type of player on the roster. They just don't have enough of those guys, and that was what made the 2019 Raptors so good. They had 9 to 10 guys that could hit threes and play defense. And I think, for the most part, the Sixers don't have. They probably got like 2.5, 3. So
yeah.
It's every player on the Sixers is a gift and a curse for the most part, but their gifts are so strong. Joel Embiid can play defense, but he's so good. And then James Harden at his apex, at his near peak, is so good. Can that overcome that? I guess we'll all have to see.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the non-Joel Embiid minutes in the 2019 series, Harrison. And you're saying even if the Sixers just played those minutes to a draw, like they didn't even need to play to a draw. So I got the numbers here. Like the Sixers were plus 90 in the 237 minutes that Embiid was on the court in that series, and minus 109 in the 99 minutes that he sat. And specifically in Game 7, Embiid played 45 minutes and 12 seconds on the court, and the Sixers were a plus 10, which means they lost the other 2 minutes and 48 seconds by 12. And that was, yeah, so like the numbers are ridiculous. And like, it does lead me to the other question. You mentioned that, maybe this is a great challenge for the Sixers who have championship aspirations to see a Nick Nurse coach team in the first round. Like, it wouldn't be like, because most championship teams, like not all first round matchups are built the same, right? Like when the Raptors faced the Orlando Magic, in 2019, like that was, you weren't
scared after Game 1 though, bro?
I mean, you were. I know you were walking around the city just going for 6-hour walks on the off days. But the thing I wanted to ask you is, like, we've talked about Joel, we've talked about James, we've talked about Glenn. I think in terms of just like big picture narratives, if you were to rank the three of them in terms of who has the most pressure to deliver, in this playoff run, like how would you rank the three?
Between Glenn, James, and Joel?
Yeah.
That's a good one. I think, let's see. Okay, the first one's easy. It's James, because James has a $200 million plus max extension on the line. So it's got to be James number one. Joel Embiid's money is set, signed, sealed, and delivered. He's good. Number two would then have to be Glenn. because the vibes on Sixers Twitter around him are not good. You already know his history as a playoff head coach that are well documented. It would have to be Glenn, and then on top, then you also have the rumors with him potentially being linked to the Lakers or the Jazz. That's also out there as well. So he would definitely be number 2, and then number 3 would be Embiid. I think, I know for the most of the Sixers, when the Sixers played the Raptors, Marc Gasol did a good job on him, a really good job on him, but he still played well. Nobody would say that the series was Embiid's fault. Yes, he probably shouldn't have done that helicopter celebration. What was that, after Game 3?
Oh, that was hilarious. That was
funny. I remember that ticked off a lot of Raptors fans and a lot of Raptors players.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think there's that much pressure on him because he's just that good. And even if his shot is not falling, even if he's not hitting threes, he's just so dominant, just so skilled on the inside that he still could make up for where he might fail. He's going to dominate games one way or another. There's no way around it. So I wouldn't put too much pressure on him because his game has so many facets to it that he's going to excel one way or another. And if all of his skills are on display, it's out of control. But some of his skills, just because of his size, are always going to work. Right. He's just too dominant.
Especially on the defensive end. Like, that's the thing where, I'm going to be very curious to see which way Doc goes, or Glenn goes, with the Pascal matchup, because, we've seen Embiid guard Pascal quite a bit in the 2 or 3 meetings they played each other this season. But we've also seen Tobias Harris get that job. Maybe they put Matisse on him. To be honest, Matisse, I feel like, is a better perimeter defender than a guy who is posting up a lot or even isoing a lot one-on-one in the mid-range area. But, we'll see. Probably, honestly, Danny probably will spend some time against Pascal as well. None of those matchups are ideal, and eventually we'll see Embiid on there. But if Embiid gets to play free safety by, let's say he's covering Scotty and he's ignoring him the whole time, right? Or let's say he's covering Precious and he's ignoring him the whole time and he can just help at the basket, then you're going to see a lot of issues for the Raptors offense unless those guys hit shots, which, if you're Philly, you're probably going to make that bet. But 2 questions before we go, Harrison. Number 1, so we have this thing here called the Gerald Henderson Award, which is going to players who aren't the guy you expect to kill you, but randomly always goes off against the Raptors. Gerald Henderson was a classic example of this. So who is the Gerald Henderson Award pick for you on Philly's side, where you're just going to – Raptor fans are just going to be like, I can't believe this guy's torching us?
I think it could be Shake Milton.
Shake Milton, okay. All right.
James Ennis no longer there, right? Because he was a candidate.
Bro, James
as well.
Ennis dominated that series, bro. Man, the stat was crazy. I think James Ennis blocked more shots attempts from Fred than Fred actually made shots in the whole series.
Jeez.
He was awesome in that series, James Ennis. He still terrifies me. Yeah.
He was. I think Shake is probably more talented than he's been able to show so far this season, but he's had flashes here. I think he's a very solid defensive player as well. So if he has the opportunity to put the ball on the ground a little bit more and not just operate as a catch and shoot player, I think he could potentially go off with some, if a closeout is laid, if the pressure, if they want to relieve James of some ball handling pressure, I think he could do some things. He could pull up from the mid range. He could get to the basket. He has an offensive skill set that can help break and relieve pressure. And they're going to, especially in Toronto, where there's going to be no Thibault, he could be counted on a bit more to be the guard, be the person that helps guard Fred or Gary Trent Jr. Because obviously Thibault won't be there.
Yeah, so Shake.
It's going to be interesting though, for sure.
Yeah, are we going to allow the Shake Milton nickname, because his real name is Malik Benjamin Milton?
No,
Shake is cool.
Okay, we're going to refer to him as Shake.
Yeah,
I just want to run that.
Teammates call him Shake. We going to call him.
Okay,
Shake.
fine. Okay, but we're going to keep it Glenn. Before we let you go, Harrison, we've been asking everybody who comes on the show this week. We need the official Raptors-Sixers prediction, so we can put this out as a graphic at the end of the week, and Glenn can put it on his bulletin board.
Oh, I've been struggling with this one so much, man.
I don't know, man. Last week when you were on the show, you said in favor of the Raptors side.
Yeah, I know. That's probably because I was spending time in Kensington Market. Probably got a beef patty. Was in a great mood
Oh,
too.
look
Oh,
at this guy
wow.
pandering.
Wow.
This guy trying to set up a comeback to Toronto next
Yeah.
season.
I know,
I can
man.
feel
Listen,
it.
bro.
I can
We're
feel it.
we're ready to welcome you home, Harrison. This is your home forever. You know that.
Hey man, hey listen, it did feel great being back. It felt like a second home for sure. Okay, I'll say this. I'm going to have to go with the Sixers in 7, and I'm mainly saying that because I don't know where the health of OG and Fred are. If they look like their normal form,
Yeah.
then I would pick the Raptors. But I don't know where they are, and I think that will obviously you need. There's going to be a lot more half-court offense that the Raptors are going to have to run. They're not going to be able to score in transition as they usually do during the regular season, and they're one of the best regular season transition teams. So that is going to escape. That's not going to be an option anymore, which means you need more half-court scoring. If you have Pascal being guarded by Joel Embiid, you're definitely going to need Fred to score more in the half-court. Where is he at health-wise? That would be the key. And because I don't know that as of yet, and because I would really like Danny to be the first player with 4 rings with 4 different teams, I'm going to go with the Sixers. And so I think he would be the first athlete in North American sports to have 4 rings with 4 different teams. So I'm going to have, as much as I'm worried about the matchup, if I were a Sixer fan, I would have to pick the Sixers in 7.
Yeah, Danny, remember
I'm not confident about this at all.
Okay, well, we'll make sure we put that in the graphic. Not very confident. We'll put that in parentheses.
Right.
Danny made sure he took his championship ring with him after he picked it up in Toronto.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
I think he showed it off to some of the guys. I think Joel Embiid had a nice time looking at it. I think he might even put it on, which is kind of awkward
really?
considering how that ended.
He's
really?
like, Joel, remember what happened in 2019?
That's nice, man. No, listen, I mean, it was great seeing you guys in Toronto last week. Shout out to Danny, by the way, with that red sparkly jacket. You know what I'm talking about, man. Because I was still up in the booth doing the post game show, and I see someone who walk out in this like huge red sparkly jacket that you could even see from the 600 level, and I was like, that's got to be Danny. It's got to be a ring night for Danny, because otherwise, who's dressing like this? But no, it was great to see you guys. Seriously, you guys are, you guys do a great job. Listen to Inside the Green Room for everything you need to know about the Sixers side of things. As I mentioned, you already had George Niang on the show this week. So, Harrison, man, best of luck, and we'll catch you when you're in the city, all right?
Hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. Thanks for having me on, and this will be a fun one. I'm looking forward to watching. It's going to be nerve-wracking both ways. Oh, yeah. Sure.
No, come on. It's Raptors. It's Raptors-Sixers, man. 2 other times they played have been, like, historic series, so.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I almost wanted to go, like, best of 21 or something like that.
No. The players will not survive this, man. Come on. It's going to be like Svi versus Shake Milton at the end. All right. Appreciate you.
Peace, guys.
Oh, man. Follow Harrison Sanford on Twitter, too.
Yeah.
I think he'll be a great follow, in general, but definitely in this series as well.
Yeah. All right, that's a good spot for us to take a break. I'm your host, Walu. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Walu. I continue to be joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. Big thank you to Harrison Stanford for joining us on the show. I saw some allegations in the YouTube chat. Just looking over at the
Harrison?
You know, not wanting to upset Danny with the pick of Sixers and 7.
No, but Harrison has been the biggest critic of Danny. Critic is a strong word.
Go back to last week.
I know you're staring at my strangled headphones. I'll get that together.
No, you look like you're about to. It's about to be a solo show.
Happy Hump Day, by the way, everyone. I forgot to say that.
You also forgot to mention the Orlando Magic.
No, I did.
You did?
How did you miss it? I said, Harrison, not all first rounds are built the same. That's like incredible. In 2019.
That's incredible that you found the way to put that in.
You really don't think I can do this for the rest of the season?
Wow. I don't know, man. I don't know why you love to take on challenges so personally, because it was the same thing with the hat, too.
Yeah.
And then I bullied you out of that one.
Challenge me to anything, man. Do you want to insert another
just
keyword?
Eat the 10 Big Macs, man. That's the only challenge I'm really interested in.
Okay, but what are you saying? So people are saying Harrison doesn't want to upset Danny by picking the Raptors.
And that's why he picked Sixers. And look, listen to last week's show, man. He said, he said he loves Danny to death, as obviously as he would. But he was like, no, more Danny is not the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't pick him as a Gerald Henderson award potential.
No, he didn't.
Person, right?
No, listen.
No, Harrison's a good go-to source for the Sixers, honestly.
Yeah, he's very honest about that. Listen, in Philly, the answer, obviously AI. Danny, the question.
Yeah, it's always hard for me when
you don't know if he's gonna hit 6 threes or 0. You just don't know. He's the question.
It's always hard for me when I hear the joke 2 minutes before we go on air.
Yeah, it doesn't hit the
same.
same.
And then you roll it out on the red carpet again.
Know, man. 2 hours is tough. How much content do you
think
one man has?
Wow. I can't believe you're the one that's complaining about 2 hours. Meanwhile, I got a pep in my step.
Please. Come on, man.
Practice.
Yeah, by the way, the Raptors are doing media availability.
They're practicing.
As we speak. They finished practice, and we will cover that in the second hour with Vivek Jacob, some of the things that Nick Nurse has said today, Pascal, Thaddeus Young as well. So the first round schedule, I think everybody knows now, is out. So Saturday, 6 p.m. is game 1. Game 2 in Philly is Monday at 7:30. Then the Raptors are back home next Wednesday on April 20th, 8 p.m. So that will be the first playoff game at Scotiabank Arena since the 2019
8 p.m.
NBA Finals.
It's a little late, man.
Yeah, well, then on Saturday, game 4 in Toronto will be at 2 p.m.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are the times that we know so far.
That's either going to be a really blessed weekend or just a completely miserable one where, I mean, for me personally, April 23rd, that's my mom's birthday.
Oh.
So
happy birthday to Mrs. Lou. Can we call her?
No, you know that in Chinese culture, we don't actually just make the woman take the man's name. That's not something that we do here.
That's great.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm either going to be saying happy birthday to my mom in a very, very celebratory tone, or it'll just be like a happy birthday, mom.
Oh, come on, man. Okay, didn't we say 2 weeks ago you're taking a new holistic approach? Not the Matisse Thybulle holistic approach, like just general life approach.
I also
Chairman Lou.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, no. Why do we create our own drops? Shout out to Derek Brandeo, 21-year-old intern, still working for us.
Oh, he turned 1 year older?
Oh, sorry.
Don't age the man. Come on.
Yeah, so I thought you weren't going to let it affect your mood. Like,
what? The playoffs, especially midway through the series, like game 4 is like a pivotal game. Right? Either the Raptors up 3-1 or it's like a real series.
So you're saying I'd rather my mom's birthday was after game 1 is what you're saying?
I'm just saying, like, could they not reorient their lives to be in the off season? Like,
okay, this is
my brother's birthday's in the off season. I have no issue celebrating that one.
This is my Vince Carter graduation question for you. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say the Sixers are playing the Raptors. Game 7 is slated to be Saturday, April 30th, right? Let's say the game's at 1 p.m., whatever. And let's say your younger brother is graduating and he's asked you to be there at 1 p.m.
There's a real chance of this because he will be graduating in 2 years.
Okay. What would you choose? If he said, Will, like, you've meant so much to me. You've been a huge mentor to me. Like, I would love for you to be there at 1 p.m. when the Raptors are playing game 7. What would you pick?
Man, this is tough.
Do you want a few days? You can think about it.
Maybe we should sympathize with Vince. Like, why are we so cruel about this? We celebrate education on this show. That's a really tough question.
Yeah.
Do I go to my brother's graduation or do I go to a pivotal Raptors playoff game?
Game 7.
I mean, he'll get like a master's. I'll go there.
Okay. So it looks like you'll be asking for the Zoom link. You're going to tap in on Zoom.
In reality, listen, my brother will understand. Like, he'll probably be watching the stream.
Okay. Asian dad.
On Sportsnet now. No, he'll be watching the stream during the graduation. I don't know. That's really tough, though. I actually really have to think about that. Damn.
Yeah. Family or basketball? Family or Raptors? Where do your priorities lie?
I mean, to be fair, he goes to school in McGill. Like, I could fly back to Toronto in an hour. Like,
you are literally pulling a Vince.
I'll pull the Vince, yeah.
People are going to be like, man, his React pod would have been a lot better if he didn't go to the graduation. I wasn't really feeling the energy on. Like, this was a game 7. How did he not bring it? How did Will not? He recapped this like it was a Thursday game against the Charlotte Hornets.
Like, why do you only got 5 things for a playoff game?
Anyways, did you watch the play-in tournament last night?
So I didn't watch. Well, no, I watched like half of Cleveland Clippers.
Right.
Oh, not Cleveland Clippers. Sorry, Cleveland
and
Brooklyn.
And Brooklyn. Yep.
And I don't know. It kind of went exactly how I thought it would. The Nets jumped out to a huge lead, and then the Cavs are a plucky team. Plus, like this is like a play for your life situation, so they're not going to quit. So they kept chipping away at it. But I mean, like I thought the Nets kind of had it under control the whole time, and part of it is look the Cavs are pretty weak right now, but they did have a number of players available for them. Like really, it was just Jarrett Allen who wasn't in the lineup for them. So that was a bit of a stiff test for Brooklyn, but I thought Drummond played well. I thought Bruce Brown played well. And then, of course, Kyrie hit the first 12 shots of the game for himself. And KD was KD. So what are you really going to do against that, right? It's really just like, can they have 2 role players step up for them? And they did. So I'm really excited to see Brooklyn versus Boston, man. That might be the best bet to take down Boston, I think, honestly.
Yeah, save that for Friday.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We're rationing content again. All right.
Yeah, because you started complaining about having to work 2 hours.
I didn't.
Meanwhile, I'm just ramping up. So we did have. So we're doing predictions throughout the playoffs, starting with the play-in, me versus you, and if you win, I will take you to SVP for a shopping trip, and if I win, you have to buy me the Maple Leafs Justin Bieber jersey.
So they have the Leafs jerseys at SVP too. It's only like $50.
Okay, so we can just go there. Yeah.
No, but they don't have the
okay.
The
No.
No, you're getting like
what are you getting me, man?
My God, I hate when
I'm not going
to the show.
I'm not going.
No, you're getting like a prime like.
Don't take me to Pacific
Nick
Mall.
Antropov. 80,
what's wrong with
80
you,
jersey for $50. Yeah.
All right. What's the point of doing all this? So Cleveland yesterday, I took them plus 9.5, and they did cover.
Yep.
You took Brooklyn minus 9.5, so I'm in the lead, and we both took Clippers plus 3.
Yep.
Timberwolves, great home crowd, and really a great game. Karl Anthony Towns struggled throughout.
Oh, he more than struggled, bro.
Well, fortunately, play-in stats don't count anywhere. Like it doesn't, so nobody will ever remember this. But he fouled out pretty early in the fourth quarter after
he picked up his 4th foul in the first half.
It was a terrible game from him. And then once he went to the bench, the Wolves made a run and won, and Patrick Beverley managed to make himself the main character.
I was going to say because Anthony Edwards had a great game. D'Angelo Russell had a great game.
Yeah, Naz Reid.
Guys had the supporting cast was playing pretty good defense overall.
Yep.
But it was about Patrick Beverley.
It was Patrick Beverley. He was shouting at Steve Ballmer courtside, which honestly is so funny.
No, let's be real, man. Because Steve Ballmer would probably do the same thing to Patrick Beverley. So there's no losers there. There's only winners for us.
Pick a member from the Tampa Raptors shouting at Masai that is like Patrick Beverley comp. Like, who would that be? Like
probably Stanley Johnson being like, "Oh, you said that I need to change careers from basketball." Because remember, Stanley gave that actual quote
in the exit interview. Right?
Yeah, he was talking about how it was like, you know what, I really needed some real talk because when I left Toronto, Masai was talking to me. He was like, you need to get better as a basketball player. And I was like, damn.
Yeah, that's Raptors culture for you. And so Patrick Beverley did his whole celebration, jumped on the scores table.
Didn't he do it twice?
Twice, threw his jersey into the stands, and then was getting emotional, tearing up as he walked to the locker room. And then when he went to the locker room, he was on his Instagram, on his IG Live. And here's a brief clip from his celebration.
Playoffs. Hey, check that goal off now, folks. Yeah. Check that goal off now. Bad boys. I told you we was going to playoffs. Did nobody believe me? We Clippers. Beat they out of here. Out of here.
Damn.
So cap or no cap, Patrick Beverley celebrating the MetaQuest play-in tournament win.
sounded like he was on Maury, man. Like, oh my goodness. No, listen, celebrate everything in life. Like, I think, I don't know, man. So much of life is really just about like finding joy in the little things that, you know, you can learn to appreciate. And I think this is one of those things where, look, he obviously feels extremely validated. The Clippers moved on from him. He was a big part of Clipper culture, if there was such a thing. To be fair, I don't think Clippers have a culture, but to the extent that they did have one, he was a big part of their team. So I think that was a big emotional moment for him. And also, like, what else is Patrick Beverley going to be able to make it about himself? Like, this might be the pinnacle of his career. So good for him. I'm happy for him, truly. And yet I'm still extremely annoyed by him, you know? But you could be happy for someone to be annoyed at them at the same time. So, you know, good for Patrick Beverley, man. I'm not here to police joy.
No, I think that's spot on. I'm happy for Patrick Beverley. Listen, he has some questionable plays, a long list of questionable plays.
Yeah.
Against different players. You remember the Russell Westbrook incident many years ago. You remember even last year in the conference finals. Like, I think he shoved Chris Paul. I think he grabbed like DeAndre Ayton's neck. And then he must have done something to Devin Booker as well. He hit the triple-double. He just hit the triple-double.
He thought he was Serge Ibaka versus
Oh, my God. And so now it's going to be Memphis versus Minnesota, which will be fun. It will be fun. So tonight, let's continue these predictions.
Yo, so by the way, I'm out on sports gambling. I've lost twice now. I'm good, man.
Okay, but we have to do these predictions.
Okay, that's fine. We'll keep
just
doing
don't
predictions.
Gamble.
I'm not putting any money on this.
Yes, don't.
It's just not for me personally. Like, I'm just not good at this stuff.
No, it's all good, man.
All right.
It's all good. So tonight, Charlotte is at Atlanta in the 9-10 game. Atlanta is favored -4.5 points. So I'll let you pick both today. So who are you taking here?
Man, these are both kind of like toss-ups to me. Not in the sense that like I think both games will be extremely close, but there's a real chance that like an upset could happen. Like, it wouldn't surprise me either way in terms of what the outcomes of these two games could potentially be. I think for Charlotte, they shoot a lot of threes, so they have a real chance to really flip it on you. You know, they don't really have much defensively to throw at Atlanta, but I also don't think Atlanta has that much defensively to throw at Charlotte. Atlanta's been playing better of late, for sure. And I do think Trey is the best player in the series or in this game. I guess I'll go with Atlanta. But I don't feel super confident about it, to be honest.
Okay. I'll just take Charlotte just for fun. Yeah, I think I'm with you. I mean, there's a reason why I think these two teams are in the 9-10.
Yeah.
And that's why
if it comes anywhere close to the excitement that was on yesterday, that'd be great.
I think they would have to helicopter Patrick Beverley in to play for Atlanta.
Why? Yo, if Patrick Beverley played for Atlanta, Atlanta's winning that game. I'm telling you, man. What if Patrick Beverley just became the play-in specialist? You know how you told Steph Curry the next 5 years are mine?
Yeah,
what if he said the next 5 play-in games are mine? Because there's a real chance he's in the next 5 play-in games.
Out of here.
Someone did say.
Oh, man.
Someone did say that to me on Twitter yesterday. They said the next 5 play-ins are his. So shouts to that person.
You better be saying the next 10 Big Macs are mine.
Oh man,
I need to see that.
Yeah, you're really pressing that agenda. It's got me a little worried. I thought that storyline had gone away, just like you going for ramen with Utah Watanabe. That turned out to an anime filler story arc. It just went nowhere.
Yeah, that's on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z type of thing.
I don't know why I crack up when you say that. Remember when they were in Namek and it took like 96 episodes to meet Frieza?
Yeah, no, it's a real issue.
Shouts to all the Asian listeners out there. Actually, everybody watches Dragon Ball Z.
That's right. Dragon Ball Z is is international.
International. But like the other game in the West, San Antonio at New Orleans. New Orleans -5.5. Make your pick.
I don't know, man. Who cares?
Well, you're not excited to see Keldon Johnson versus Jose Alvarado?
You know what? Jose Alvarado is probably the player in the league that reminds me the most of Patrick Beverley.
Oh, okay.
Not in like the over, even a little bit with the over the top kind
like
of
the
stuff.
peskiness, like just like the way he just plays. Right? Like he tries to fluster the other opponents.
The next 5 Patrick Beverleys are Jose Alvarados, so I'm gonna go with the Pelicans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'll go with the Spurs, just for fun.
Yeah, name me 5 Spurs right now.
Keldon Johnson, DeJounte Murray, Becky Hammond,
come on,
Greg Popovich, and R.C. Buford. Yeah.
What about Jakob Poeltl?
Oh, yes.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, shouts to Jakob. Remember when Jakob Poeltl was the big trade rumor at the deadline?
Yes.
for the Raptors.
Raptors interested in Jakob Poeltl, which maybe was a smokescreen because they just wanted that all along. I don't know. Maybe that was part of a bigger deal. But Yak has had a really good season, man. And every time I look at Yak, though, I'm reminded of this very hidden gem in an Open Gym episode where if you go back and look at it, the first time the Raptors played in San Antonio after the Kawhi trade, which was the Kawhi trade, it was the DeMar trade. No one really remembers this as the Jakob Poeltl trade, but that was a storyline that was covered in Open Gym because the year before that they had the bench mob and all those guys, right? So the story was that Jakob Poeltl invited his boys out to San Antonio. It was like DeLon Wright, it was Fred, it was Norm, it was Pascal, and they were going to have a dinner in San Antonio.
Mob. The whole bench mob.
And then so Jakob got to the restaurant first, and the Raptors arrived later on, and Fred greeted him, and he was like, "Yo, Big Ugly." I was like, "Holy, that can't be your nickname, man." You guys just nickname him Big Ugly? That's tough. What about yakking skills, man?
Oh, you're gonna start calling you that. If you see Will on the street,
Big Ugly's crazy. It's a crazy nickname for people who are friends, man.
If you see him on the street, please just shout out Big Ugly.
No, don't do that, man.
That is the new code word.
Salute to there was an Asian person who yelled at me outside of their car and see me at an intersection yesterday.
Oh, yesterday. I
Salute
thought you were talking about the other time when I saw that happen. But yeah, so we'll do the rest of our playoff predictions, including, do you want to save our Raptors-Sixers prediction for Friday?
Yeah, well,
just to keep some
we really
suspense.
had a prediction week of the whole show. Like we might have, when you think back on this, we might have done 10 hours of Raptors-Sixers preview.
Yeah,
because I
can talk about
the whole week.
I can talk about other stuff, but
No,
this is what the listeners want.
Don't break out the in case of emergency
Yeah,
topics.
this is what the listeners want. You don't want to, breaking case. I've got a Nick Nurse poker theory. I don't remember what that is.
What? No, I want to hear that one.
No, but we'll get to that later. But yes, so we'll do our playoff predictions. You know what we'll do? We'll do our predictions, obviously, for Raptors-Sixers, but we're going to keep this game going of just predicting each first-round series. We'll just do it as a two-person draft. Like, we'll each just draft a series, and then those will be our picks, okay? Let's just do it that way.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Oh man,
I'm enthused.
It's a tough hump day for you.
No, it's
Have you had your coffee yet? This is what they always say at the office.
I woke up a little early today.
Yeah.
So I've already been up for quite a few hours, and
that's a go-to excuse at the offices. If you mess something up in the morning, you just say, "Haven't had my coffee yet." Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Look at you, man. So what was it like as an accountant? Let's be real. We have 4 minutes here, and we will go back to basketball topics soon.
Yes, we will be back on Sixers-Raptors coverage at 2 p.m. sharp.
Yeah, so back when you were a civilian and you were an accountant at Ernst & Young, like what was your day like? Like what would you be doing at 1:51 right now?
Probably just coming back from a 3-hour lunch break at the food court. Shouts to Commerce Court.
Salute Commerce Court. Wow.
You get into work at 9.
Yeah.
Go on the instant messenger, check the emails, and then message 2 people who want to go for coffee. So you go for a 45-minute coffee break. Nah, man, come on. Worked 80 hours a week, man.
Damn.
Yeah.
Is this why you changed careers?
Ask the slander expert Assad.
Yeah. No, he's working right now. I know he's listening live and shedding a single tear.
No, shouts. But yeah, no, it's not that interesting.
So you worked 80 hours a week and now you're complaining about the workload now?
I mean, I'm fake complaining. Do you think it's real? Do the bosses think it's real?
No, it's definitely fake.
No, I'm locked in. No, because I think you mentioned Asimu Liu had posted something, right? Because he used to work at Deloitte, which was another accounting firm.
Yesterday was like the 10-year anniversary of him getting laid off at Deloitte or something.
Yeah.
Which
and he became a Marvel movie star.
We got to discuss this too, but like I feel like for a lot of people in life, their original plan has to go awry first before they end up doing what they want to do. Why is that?
Well,
why don't you just do what you want to do from the start?
Well, if you want to speak specifically to like the Chinese experience, I think just a lot of parents, have certain expectations and push their kids towards a certain way, right? Like, it's not like I grew up being like, I want to be an accountant.
Wait,
like let me crunch these numbers up.
You weren't 3 years old and you picked up a calculator. You're like, yeah.
I was really into astrology growing up. Yeah,
really?
I wanted to like go to space. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I wanted to be Jeff Bezos. Yo, the small talk is wild when you're the one who
initiates.
Yeah, Because when I initiate, I always just go, hey, family or Raptors? Like pick a family member or the Raptors, and you always just duck the question.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's true. Like, obviously, parents do push you in specific ways, and
Listen,
I don't know. As a kid, at least for me, it was like I was always so concerned about like what should I be doing, like who should I be, what should I be doing. I guess even to some degree, I'm still like that now. But like once you sort of let go of that and try to accept like what you want to do, and because ultimately the life is you're going to be trying to appease other people, and there's going to be a lot of people in your life that's going to be important to you, and how they feel is important. But ultimately, you're the one that's going to have to live your own life. And this was great. Our producer is saying 60 seconds. I know he's in the back just shaking his head.
We're about to get the Oscar music. No, I think at the end of the day too, as I've gotten older now, as I'm approaching like 40, it's just like I think I used to I think a lot of people in their 20s let work define them. Like if you're not happy at work, you think it just defines you. Similar to how you let every Raptors game dictate your whole life. Like
yeah, I was gonna say. I was like,
really
who are you talking about? That wouldn't be me.
And now
no one's calling me Mr. Podcast on the streets.
I'm still trying to be better at it, but it's like work shouldn't define you or consume you. Right?
So what does define you then, Alex?
Work. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely, only work.
Hey, by the way, before we go to break, the chat is roasting you because you said you were really passionate about astrology growing up instead of astronomy.
Yeah, that's what I meant. This is why I didn't become an astronomer, because I got into tarot cards, I guess. I mixed up my Dragon Ball Z cards and my tarot cards.
We're taking this break. We're coming back with basketball talk, we promise, okay? More Raptors-Sixers talk. We are going to be on to hour 6 of Raptors-Sixers previews. I'm your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan.
Yeah,
really?
I wanted to like go to space, yeah.
Welcome back to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Will Lou. A reminder, we are streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 1 to 3 p.m. To people watching, thank you. Hello. We see you in the chat. And we will be joined in the second hour by Vivek Jacob of Raptors.com. Alex, what's the situation with Vivek? Give us the Vivek update.
Yeah, so we've asked Vivek to come in studio to join us for the first time. Obviously, longtime listeners know Vivek's a regular on the Raptors Show with Will Lou, but he was at practice earlier today and obviously sitting in on the media availabilities. And I think they started a little bit late. So he just messaged me on WhatsApp. He's on his way. So hopefully he'll join us maybe in this segment or definitely in the next segment.
All right.
And yeah, by the way, so I messed up astrology and astronomy, right?
That's
so
right,
yeah,
yes.
on air apology. Only went to ESL for 6 months.
That's
I was really into astrology. Derek,
man.
this is what we need a new intern, man. Derek, when is your internship over?
Yeah, I want to like go to space.
Anyways, we were gonna have V give us like a live practice report, right? Like come in, chat with us. But thanks to technology and following Raptors beat reporters on social media, we've got a lot of these quotes here, which I thought we could run through and talk about.
Let's do it.
And some of these topics we've already speculated about, talked about. Okay, Herbie. So
Shooting too.
Nick Nurse took the podium, and one of the questions that he was asked today was about the option of starting a smaller lineup, which would be the 5 best guys, versus potentially having Precious or Kem be the starting center. And he said, quote, "There's certainly an argument to be made a lot of ways. There will be a lot of iterations of it." Not sure where that's, you're probably not surprised by that response. Like, it's going to be a lot of options on the table, but I think it's still going to be pretty curious what that opening starting lineup's going to be on Saturday.
Yeah, look, if I had to guess, I would say that they're going to open with their regular starting 5 because, quite frankly, when they've had all 5 of Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Scotty Barnes healthy this season, they have always started those guys. Outside of, actually, no, not even outside of the home opener because Pascal wasn't there for that one. So that's their preferred group. I think they'll start with that. If it doesn't work, that's a thing you can adjust against. But to me, I think that the likelihood is there. From Nick's perspective, you also got to consider that, A, he's just not going to tell you outright what he's going to do, because why would he do that? I mean, it's not like Glenn Rivers being like, Paul Reed, that guy's not good.
No,
DeAndre
Paul
Jordan's
Reed.
better for me.
No Paul Reed victory
right?
tours.
Like you have Glenn like outright detailing, when the team goes small, I'm going to play Paul. When they go big, I'm going to go to play DeAndre. Like, I don't think Nick is going to be that explicit, especially with the playoff series ahead of him. I also think there may be some gamesmanship in that sense too, maybe making the Sixers prepare for multiple looks when they really only want to go with one. But also just, putting aside all the other stuff, just tactically speaking, it does make some sense, right? Like, I think this is a series where you probably will see Kem play 5 to 10 minutes and soak up some of those Embiid matchups, especially if guys get into foul trouble, which happens a lot against Embiid. You might need to see some depth come in there as well. Now, I know for fans listening, there are like groaning because I don't think Kem has been that effective, quite honestly, even though he can provide you with some strength guarding Embiid. That also means that offensively, you're giving Embiid free license to just help off of a guy and ignore him completely and be at the rim, which is going to be detrimental. I don't think that there should be a series where Kem should play all that much unless he somehow starts to look for his shots again. And because you need, if you're not getting covered on defense, you got to be aggressive when the ball swings to you. And I'm not confident that he will do that all the time. Precious is probably the guy that is the best covered against Embiid. And, look, about starting and not starting, you got to put your egos aside at certain points and just like, what's the most important thing towards winning? It's really just starting a game. Does it really matter who starts?
Yeah, no, I said this.
You're
at
not
the start
getting
of
demoted. You're really your team is trying to win, and they're, and I mean, if Precious gives you the best chance, which I think he will give you the best chance against Embiid, then I wouldn't be surprised if he did start a series. But I'm still thinking that's probably more game 2, game 3 kind of thing.
Yeah, I've always said too, like, as much as I think it's obviously more important in a playoff series, who your starting lineup is. You don't want to get off to these slow starts, but, closing lineup is important too. I guess I'll put it to you too, because we've talked about this in several different ways. If you were, a Sixers fan, or if you're the Sixers, which starting lineup would you think you would prefer to see from the Raptors?
That's a good question. I mean, we've seen Nick start Kem quite a bit, so I think from their perspective, they probably prefer to see the Raptors start Kem. I think to me, like, it's gonna be really interesting what Scottie does in this series because just look, he's only played them twice. In this current roster, obviously this is over the last month, and I don't think Scottie had a good game either game. So I'm curious to see what spots he can sort of find in the matchup. But I think that's something where he might start slow in the series and then work his way back into it. How much patience the Raptors have against that, though, is going to be interesting because, as Harrison talked about, like, look, the playoffs are pretty detailed and pretty extreme, right? We see it, like, even in the playing games, how tightly it was played and a lot of half-court basketball. Like, you're going to need your guys to be able to score and be aggressive and not be shy. And I think that sometimes you do see moments of shyness from Scottie. And how willing Nick is going to be to ride through some of those moments, it's going to be real interesting to see. But, yeah. I don't know. Even the matchups, though, I think Nick has a lot of options, right? Like, so he's put Scottie on Harden quite a bit. Well, you can kind of get the same effect by putting OG on Harden because if the idea is you want to switch some of those pick and rolls and keep the size and the matchups the same, OG can kind of do the same thing because, as we've talked about a million times in the show, the Raptors are only 6'8" forwards. So
yeah, no, it's true. And you mentioned OG, and Nick was asked about OG's health status because he came back on Sunday and played against the Knicks. Said that OG was a little bit sore after that Knicks game, but by all accounts, he'll be ready to go for game one. But it seems like there's just still a bit of concern about conditioning. That's what Nick mentioned. So, I mean, OG's going to have to play a huge role in this series, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is another one where I listen to it and I'm like, that's gamesmanship again.
Okay.
Because why would you just say OG's 100% ready to go? He's going to start for us. He's going to play all these minutes. I would keep the expectations low, and then all of a sudden, boom, OG plays like 35 minutes at a pretty high level. I mean, look, OG is going to be very important in this series. Defensively, he's viable against, well, especially Harden, but, probably against Embiid as well, in the sense that what the Raptors want to do with Embiid is they want to at least hold him up in the post until the help comes. And I think OG is strong enough to kind of at least do that for some degree. I'm not saying he's going to shut down Embiid. That's ridiculous. But I think he can execute the game plan that the Raptors want to do against Embiid. And I think on the other side, you need reliable three-point shooting, and I think OG can provide that for you. He's a guy you can trust in playoff moments. He's been trustworthy in the 2 times he's been in the playoffs before this, and it should be 3, but obviously he was out for the 2019 series. So just hopefully OG is healthy and everything's back. The fact that you had 11 days really does help in this sense.
Yeah, and hopefully the rest is good for Fred as well, right? Fred obviously sat out the end of the regular season, so he's had an extended stretch. So let's see how he looks for game one. And you were talking about Nick having a lot of options, gamesmanship, and we've talked so much about this coaching matchup. Thad Young took the podium too, and he said, quote, "We have a phenomenal coaching staff. When I first got here and got the first scouting report, I was like, this is one of the best scouting reports I've ever seen." I think he did talk to you a little bit about that too. Yeah. When he came on the show and was just like, I've never seen a coaching staff that was so well prepared.
That's really impressive in terms of a compliment coming from like a 15-year vet like that, because Thad's played for a number of coaches over his career. I mean, he's played in the league a very long time. He's literally coming from playing for Greg Popovich, right? So I think it's not a surprise. I think Nick has always talked about, like, he had that quote the first time the Raptors were playing Philly, post All-Star break, where the Raptors won 93-88. Before the game, he's like, "Yeah, I got a menu prepared for James Harden and Joel Embiid. I got a menu full of options defensively."
They need to hand out like a Chinese takeout menu.
Yeah,
at the arena.
No, I'm serious. Like
with Nick Nurse's actual gameplay.
No, there should be like a drinks list.
Yes.
At first, and then there's the menu, and then you got to pick from the appetizer or
entrees.
The main.
Yeah, 2 for 1 deals.
Bjorkgren comes to your table.
2 for 1 deals for Will.
He's like, that's a little bit too much. He's like, "Oh, that's too much food for you guys," and you're like, "Just allow it."
Yeah.
And then you're like, "Okay." So, yeah, I mean, I think that's what he had prepared, and it was real interesting because after the game, the reporters followed up on the question. I was like, "Hey, so what did you think of in terms of all those options you went against them?" And he was like, "Well, I only had to go to like a few options. I didn't have to adjust all that much." Which I thought was kind of a bar too, just from him being like, "Yeah, I had prepared all these counters, but turns out you need to counter when the other team changes something, and they didn't change much. Obviously, they only scored 88 points. So now I think offensively, Philly did counter the next game because they had tangible improvements in that one. They moved the ball a lot better. They shot the ball a lot better too, of course, but with better ball movement, it's always going to influence your shooting percentages as well. So you got to give the Sixers credit for or adjusting and adapting between games. But I think Nick will have tons of strategies prepared for this one. And again, you're looking at a guy like Nick who's going to have, 4 or 5 practices really over the course of the series, if not more, to really drill in how to execute on all these little fine points and all the adjustments and all the things like that. We've talked about it a lot. I think Nick versus Glenn is a clear advantage.
Yeah, that's one of the paths to an upset. And Nick said that this series is going to be a slugfest. And when Pascal was told about that when he came to the podium, he said, "Slugfest, it's just basketball." I think it's just basketball. So big disagreement between Nick Nurse and Pascal Siakam. No, I was thinking about this too, and there are a couple things about the 2019 series that I wanted to ask you about, because Fred and Pascal are 2 of the players that are still on this team playing different roles now. I think clearly we all remember Fred struggling in that series. I think you mentioned earlier that James Ennis blocked more shots than Fred had field goals. So Fred was...
I'm going to double check that one.
Yeah, but Fred, you might be right, because Fred was 3 for 24 from the field.
Okay, I'm going to see if he got more than 3 blocks
in the series, and 1 of 14 from 3. Now he's playing a different role. He's on a different team. Should there be any carryover concern based on what we saw in that 2019 series against the Sixers?
No, I think the matchup is going to be pretty different. I think, first off, 2 extremely different coaches between Brett Brown and Doc Rivers. I think the defensive matchup and the defensive personnel for Philly back then was really impressive. You had, Ben Simmons, who, look, you can slander Ben Simmons all you want offensively. I think there's lots there to go at. But realistically, what he can do on the defensive end, that man's a menace, right? So you have him, you had Jimmy Butler, you had Joel Embiid, who I think was more lively defensively that season than he is right now. We'll see what happens in the postseason right now, but I think objectively his defense was better that year than it is this season, at least regular season so far. There was just like a lot of good defense on that side of the floor. And as Fred talked about this a few times too, when he's asked about this, it's like, look, series and matchups, like they really do change, right, from round to round. And I think in that specific opponent, the Raptors strategy was a lot of one-on-one play, trying to go through Pascal and also trying to go through Kawhi. And those are the only 2 guys who really had good offensive series. Everyone else is sort of waiting around for the kick out, and maybe it comes, maybe it doesn't. But I think in this series, it's going to be a little bit different. There's more perimeter options to be attacking. Whether you're looking at like a Danny Green, you can, he's a little older, right? You can look at Tyrese Maxey. He's not a very good defender. Now, Tybalt is a very good defender, but he's not going to be available for some of these games. You look at some of their bigs. You can attack a guy like Niang. You can attack a guy like even Tobias Harris. You can attack to a certain degree, right? So, I think Fred will be, used more in this series than he was back then. And quite frankly, that is one of the X factors coming into the series is just like, where's Fred's knee at? Because if Fred's 100%, or if he's even close to 100%, like if he's the version of Fred that was, doing the big onions dance against Philly earlier this season, I would very, very confidently pick the Raptors. But I think his status is still more TBD, just based on what he's been physically since the All-Star break, or even before the All-Star break when the knee issues started happening.
Yeah, and the other player, obviously, still from that series, Pascal Siakam. And Pascal was asked at the podium about matching up with Joel Embiid, and he said, quote, "For me, my feeling has always been that I can attack anybody."
I like that.
I think, sometimes, players, coaches will say things, but like I really do, there's a real meaning behind this one, I feel like. It does speak to Pascal's confidence and Pascal's growth in his game this season. And we saw it on the court the last time they played against each other. And that's the other question for you from the 2019 series. I think Pascal had a very up and down series.
Of course.
He had 29 points, 12 for 15 in game 1 back in that 2019 series. And then you remember we talked about he tried to trip Joel Embiid.
Game 3.
Believe this was in game 3. And then he was questionable for game 4, ended up playing, but was 2 for 10 from the field with 9 points. And even in the game 7, he was 4 of 11, even though he did have 11 points, 11 rebounds. I think people really curious, too, to see the progression now of Pascal, right? From that 2019 series, from that championship run, from the bubble to now. This doesn't have to be a long answer because we talked about it, but I think we're in agreement that we're pretty confident about what Pascal is going to bring on the court in this series.
Yeah, I think there's been tangible changes in his game. I think that he's much more comfortable in that mid-range area. He gets the shots off in a variety of ways. He's not as predictable in terms of with the spin move and everything like that. And when you look at the film of the series, like, okay, so Pascal directly in terms of direct matchups has taken 16 shots against Joel Embiid. He's 9 of 16 this season. It's not all just mid-range jumpers, so that because that can kind of come and go a little bit, right? But he's beaten him with the jumpers. He's beaten him with the fakes around the basket. He's finished through contact. He's out-quicked him. Beat him with the left and the right hand. Like there's not one consistent way that Pascal has torched Joel. He's just beaten him in a variety of ways. And look, I still think Joel is going to have games where he's going to limit Pascal's scoring just because Joel's that good defensively. He's obviously bigger. He's stronger. Like, to be fair, he probably gets more latitude from the officials as well on the defensive end. So there's going to be moments where Pascal is not going to always dominate. To be fair, I don't think anyone's really going to always dominate offensively against Joel Embiid. He's Joel Embiid. He's really, really good. But to me, like, I think there are real reasons to feel confident about Pascal. And, thinking back to the first hour when we talked to Harrison, when you asked him, like, between the three of Glenn, of James, and of Joel, like, which of these guys has more on the line? Like, I think from the Raptors' perspective, you're playing with house money a little bit. I don't think, there's anything necessarily on the line, quote unquote, to that degree. But I think from the Raptors' perspective, if there is one player who has a real chance to change his perception, it is Pascal, who I think right now, the perception around him is lagging behind his actual production. His production has far exceeded his reputation this season, right? I think that's why for a lot of people, when we bring them on and do the propaganda hour, they're like, well, third team, there's other guys. And it's like, if Pascal's having the exact same season with all the exact same plays, the exact same numbers, but he had a better reputation, I think he'd be a guarantee to be the all NBA teams. But he's not because, let's be honest, like a lot of reputations are made in the playoffs. So, we'll see. I think Pascal has a good chance to do that. And if he can get the Raptors through this series as the number one guy, I think he will receive a ton of praise. And maybe finally his reputation will catch up to his actual play, which has been really, really good this season.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point when you talk about most pressure on the Raptors. And maybe we haven't talked about it much because I think the general feeling, like you mentioned, is that this has already been a successful season. Mm-hmm. And now there's optimism that they could make a bit of a playoff run. But, everybody's been using the term house money. And, I keep saying, though, just because you have house money doesn't mean you don't want to, double up on that and keep making more. Doesn't mean
this is how they get you, bro. This is how they get you,
Oh,
man.
they got me. They got me. But, like, that doesn't mean you want to throw that all away. Like, I think going back to the term higher ambitions, I think it's okay for Raptors fans and for people looking at this series to talk about a potential first-round upset and having higher ambitions. But I do think, let's be clear, man. I think if you talk about the pressure rankings for the Raptors, Pascal is clearly number one.
Yeah.
I would put Fred number two just because I think, not that there's pressure on him, but I think similar to Pascal, I think people want to see, what that's going to be like now that he's in the playoffs for the first time without Kyle. And, what that role might look like. But after that, it's hard for me to think of really guys that are like under pressure on the Raptors. If anything, it's like, let's see what the upside is of these guys, right? Like Gary, OG, Scotty, Precious. I'll throw Chris in there as well. It's like, I don't think any of these guys are really under the same pressure as on the Philly side. Like on the Philly side, these are like for James Harden, this feels like a career defining playoff run either way.
Yes.
Like I think people are ready to write the conclusion on James Harden as a postseason disappointment if they fall short again. And like Glenn, I think, is coaching for his job. We've heard about the interest to go to the Lakers. But like if they lose in the first round, I find it hard to believe. I know he just signed a long-term extension. Is that what he
signed a new extension with Philadelphia under the previous regime, which then they brought in Daryl Morey, and now they may want to bring in their own coach, which happens quite a bit.
Yeah, so
you should always hire your GM first and then hire your coach. I'm just saying, because otherwise there's going to be a lot of latitude to maybe change. Even happened with the Raptors. Let's be real.
No,
when Casey was here, then Masai came. Then Masai was like, "All right, Dwayne, I'm gonna let you run it for a little while, but in the meantime, I'm gonna put this guy Nick on your assistant staff." And then later on, he's going to take your job, and you're going to be salty about it ever since.
Yes, that was a long game. That was like 7 years.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I think Glenn's under a lot of pressure. And I know Harrison
not a doctor.
I think Harrison didn't really put Joel in that pressure ranking.
Why not, though?
Here's why I wanted to push back a little bit is that, you can look at all the faults of how the roster has been built
Mhm.
over the years and all of this. And like, I don't know, maybe this sounds too like radio hot take, but like if you're an MVP candidate,
Yep.
like I would expect by now in your career, you've appeared in at least one conference finals. And I don't think I'm asking for too much for an MVP candidate to be
Yeah.
able to get through 2 rounds to get your team to a conference finals.
Yeah. Again, I'm not questioning Joel Embiid as a playoff performer. I think as a number one guy, your numbers are going to fluctuate quite a bit. You're going to face double, triple teams. You can't just compare, you know, one guy's numbers with another guy's numbers. It completely depends on the context of how the team's guarding you and sort of what you're being asked to do. But and of course, like, look, by the way, Philadelphia has had more scapegoats than any other team. Like Markel Fultz was a scapegoat. Brian Colangelo was a scapegoat.
Brett
Brett
Brown,
Brown's a scapegoat.
Ben
Doc
Simmons,
Rivers is already
obviously.
being shaped up as to be a scapegoat.
Yeah, Glenn. Yeah,
Like they're putting wool on him.
yeah. Ben Sim.
I'm sorry.
Ben Simmons. Oh man, hump day has been tough. Ben Simmons. I told you to wave Vivek. Ben Simmons. Obviously a scapegoat as well. But listen, we got V here. Why don't we take a break and then we can have a longer segment with V when we come back?
Yeah. Well, but before we go though, I'm just gonna say this. All right.
Yep.
Embiid last year against Atlanta, 30, 13, and 4. That's a really great performance. But before that, Washington, 24, 7, and 3. Look, let's be real. They were going to beat Washington. There was no issues there. The year before that, against Boston, he averaged 30 per game, but he shot 45% from the field, and it was a 4-0 sweep. Then against the Raptors, 7-game series, 17 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, shot 37% from the field.
Wait, those are his numbers?
Those were his numbers. I know the plus minus were really good, but he averaged 17.6 points, 8.7 rebounds, 3.3 assists on 37% shooting from the field in 7 games against the Toronto Raptors.
Okay, let's get Marc Gasol a second championship ring.
I'm telling
I didn't
you,
know those were the
get
numbers.
Marc Gasol over here, right? Listen, I know Toronto is not as warm as wherever he is in Spain, but it's getting pretty nice. It's 15 degrees today. You know, Marc, you can come back and enjoy it. Even before that, man. Against Boston, 4-1 series lost, 23 points per game, 41% shooting. So it's like, I'm just saying, I'm not questioning Embiid as a playoff performer, but if there weren't as many scapegoats around, I think there would be more of a spotlight on him because he hasn't had like the signature series. Yet.
I'm just saying, man. If other superstars that you want to put on his level, like say a Giannis or a LeBron, even like at the start of his career,
even Jokic just had better playoff performance.
Jokic has been to the conference finals.
Yeah,
and I know that's such an arbitrary bar, and like maybe we're ignoring a lot of the context of the teams, but that's all I'm saying is there should be a lot of pressure on Joel as well.
Yeah,
there should be. But let's take this break, and then we'll have a long final segment with Vivek Jacob.
That's right. I've been your host, Wolu. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Will Lou. I continue to be joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong, and we are joined in the studio by Vivek Jacob of Raptors.com. Big V, how you feeling, man?
I'm good. You know, you get those playoff vibes going to practice and seeing everyone putting in the work, and you get Pascal talking about, you know, how he's ready to go up against anybody.
Yep, I love hearing that.
And yeah, I think they're just a well-oiled machine right now. And one of the things I asked Thad Young about was, like, you know, is it unusual for a team so young to be so even-keeled? And he's like, for sure. He's like, everyone just comes in kind of knowing their job. One of the things he talked about when he first came was that maybe there were some steps that needed to be taken in terms of taking constructive criticism when he'd give it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And he felt like, okay, maybe there were times where he was too hard on some of the young guys.
Yeah, okay.
And he's like, at this point, everyone takes it the right way. Everyone understands what the bigger picture is. And all the young guys are really confident.
Right.
And that's why he feels this team can be special.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, because when you're looking at, like, this series, for example, you might be curious, like, okay, this is Precious's first run in the playoffs, right? Like, how's he going to do? I mean, you don't have to approach it like any other game, really. Like, you've played Philly. You've had a huge role in beating Philly. You've had a role in a lot of big games this season. Same thing with Scotty. Scotty's been at the free throw line with literally the game on the line to decide the game against Miami, which that was a triple overtime game. That whole triple overtime wouldn't happen if Scotty didn't hit 2 free throws and also got himself on the offensive glass. Like these guys have been in big moments. Obviously, the playoffs is going to be a little different. It's going to be more intense. The pace might even slow down even more, and there's going to be a lot of half-court offense. But I don't know. I'm happy to hear that the guys are prepared, and, you know, I think that the level of anxiety, to the degree that it exists, is not that high for a Raptors playoff series. However, I am going to walk through a couple of things that might potentially make a Raptor fan anxious. And Raptor fans, generally speaking, are a bit of an anxious group, although the championship really did do wonders for our collective mental health.
Did it for you?
What are you guys talking about?
me and V are probably the two people that are most around you at the arena, during the season, during games. I don't think you've changed one bit.
Okay, fine. For other people, then.
Okay, thank you.
For other people, it has changed. For me, I'm the same.
Thank
okay.
you. So how do you want to do this anxiety? Maybe we should. You're gonna throw these out, and maybe V and I can each give it like out of 10.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, so my first point of potential anxiety is that James Harden comes back to life. He's scoring and he's carrying the non-Joel minutes. I'm not even so worried necessarily about the fact that he can get like 12, 15 assists. I'm worried about if he can get to games where he's at 30 points again. Where's is that, you know, anxiety rankings? Is that rational? Is that realistic? Where am I at?
I think I'm gonna give that like a 4 in terms of my worry about James Harden.
Okay.
And I'm happy to be wrong after Saturday.
A 4.
Yeah. I'm not that stressed. I think the combination of what we've seen from James Harden, and it's not just been like a few games against the Raptors, right? Like it's been a trend after his first 2 really great games in Philadelphia. Combination of what we've seen from him in terms of his playoff history, and also the fact that he's going up against this Toronto Raptors team, right? Like I think all of these factors are going against James Harden. So as much as we know James Harden's resume and all that, like until I see it, I'm gonna go into it with about a 4 on a worry anxiety scale. What about you, V?
I'm in the same place, because when you look at the body of work this season, the only reason for that anxiety to be high, for your question, is if you're looking at the James Harden that was playing at an MVP level in Houston.
Okay. So you're saying I'm worried about the name and the reputation more than the man itself.
Like, if we look back on the series once it's over, it's not out of the realm of possibility that James Harden is the 4th or 5th best player in the series.
Wow.
Bulletin board material for Glenn
4th
Rivers.
or 5th? So who's the...
Scotty?
Oh, my goodness.
Pascal?
Because you got Joel Embiid, you got Pascal Siakam.
I wouldn't be surprised,
Right? And then, honestly, Scotty Barnes could be that impactful, right?
Okay.
Fred VanVleet. And then there is a realm of possibility for that.
He might not even, okay.
So, for me, unless James Harden plays completely counter to what he's shown this season, I'm expecting him to be, at best, the third best player in the series.
I like it. Don't worry about this. This is nice. Okay. Point of anxiety number 2. Tyrese Maxey goes to another level, and the Raptors can't contain him. You know, you see it sometimes with young players. They really break out. For example, Pascal really broke out. He had the most improved player campaign, but then he went to the playoffs, and he really broke out. One of the reasons why Golden State couldn't beat the Raptors was because they couldn't guard Pascal Siakam. You know, some young players, when they're special, they can break out in a playoff setting. What if Tyrese is one of those guys?
Yeah, I'll go. I think this is fairly high because
Really?
I
Okay.
think, yeah, I'll give this a 7. I think Tyrese Maxey has been really effective as the third guy in Philly. And again, when you look at Philly's problems, it's probably because Harden hasn't been enough of the number 2 guy that they need.
Okay.
But in terms of Maxey's threat, a lot of that should also be credited to Harden. Like, the playmaking is still there. He's still opening up driving lanes for Maxey, and obviously he has the speed and the quickness to do it. So I think Maxey could absolutely have himself a series. And so I'd say a 7.
Yeah, I would say, I would say a 7 as well. I think as much as you can game plan around Joel Embiid and James Harden, and I think that's going to be the focus for the Raptors defense, like, Tyrese is going to be one of those X factor guys, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't account for everybody. Some if you're throwing all these bodies at Joel, even if you're throwing bodies at James, like, I think it's going to be up to Maxey. I think Maxey does need to, like V mentioned, like, best 3-4 players in this series. Like, he probably has to outplay, Fred or Gary, in this matchup for them to win. Because we talked about Tobias Harris a lot. I think a lot of us, and probably Sixers fans too, aren't expecting too much from Tobias Harris. So, like, if you're saying that Joel Embiid is going to be the MVP candidate, and then you've got Harden, I think Maxey's the next guy that's going to be able to swing this series for the Sixers. Okay. So I think, yeah, like, it's interesting because, like, I guess through these first 2, we're more worried about Maxey than James Harden, which says a lot about James Harden.
Yeah. No, I mean, I you know what? I feel like we might be slightly underrating James a little bit if we're saying that Tyrese is more dangerous than him. I mean, look, I'm not saying that there's clearly a different player between year 1 Tyrese and year 2, right? He's really a most improved player candidate. I know, like, a lot of voters don't like to give it to a second-year player. He went from going 8 points a game last year to 17.5 this year, and his percentages are better.
Yeah.
But last year in the playoffs, like, 7 games against Atlanta, he played 11 minutes per game, averaged 4 points per game, shot 36% from the field.
Damn, I thought he had better numbers than that.
I mean, look, there was a different thing at the time. Ben Simmons was obviously there.
Yeah.
He was a rookie, the minutes, whatever.
Because he had a big game 6, I remember.
Yeah, that's fine. But one big game. I mean, 4.4 was 4.4,
Yeah, I'm shocked by those numbers.
Yeah, I think from the Philly perspective, like, I think they probably are a little bit anxious to see if Tyrese can sort of extend this play into the playoffs. But, there's a level of concern. Okay, how about number 3 then? Point of anxiety number 3. The Raptors can't generate enough offense, and the Sixers start to box out. And that means no extra possessions for the Raptors, and they have to grit and grind through every single game. As Nick there said, it'll be a slugfest. How valid is this point of anxiety?
I'm going to give it a 5.
A 5.
I honestly think, like, when we've gone through the Sixers roster, right? Like, we talked about how many one-way players they have. And, like, I just don't think they have the players on the roster for you to be able to say that, oh, like, suddenly the Raptors are going to lose their offensive rebounding advantage.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
And in the half court, I'm not that. Yes, I know this is going to be. There's going to be some ugly games in this series, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be some games where maybe 90 points is going to be good enough to win. Like, it might be that extreme.
Hey,
you
listen,
don't know.
92 points was enough to win.
Oh, that's right. Just 4 bounces was required.
Great
But
number.
yes, I just think, like, I don't think the Raptors are as bad in the half court as maybe, like, I don't know what the numbers are saying. Like,
They're saying that
They're about 25th.
25th.
It's
but,
the
like,
Raptors and then, like, 5 teams that we're tanking this year in terms of
I
half
don't know
court
why.
points per possession.
I'll have to see it. I don't know why I'm not that stressed. I'm just picturing Scotty finding advantages and being in the low post. And I think they got creators too. I think Gary, is primed to potentially have a couple big games in this series.
Mm.
And I think if OG is healthy too, like, we've seen OG's resume in the playoffs. Like, I don't know. and Pascal. Like we've talked so much about Pascal and how much he's improved. So if you really believe in all those things, I don't know. I put it at a 5.
In terms of the shooting, I think I'd probably go 6 or 7 because the same way I just said, worst case scenario, Harden is the 4th or 5th best player in the series. The same way, the worst case scenario for the Raptors is Fred VanVleet, who's been shooting 29% from 3 since the All-Star break, is still shooting 29% in the playoffs. Gary Trent Jr., at least for the games in Philly, can't find a way to be effective going up against Matisse Thybulle.
Matisse has really had his number this year.
Yeah. And then OG Anunoby, Nick Nurse was saying at practice today that he's still working his way back. So we have to see how effective he can be. And then you look at the bench, there's question marks, right? Chris Boucher, Precious Achiuwa, you're not looking at them as dependable three-point shooters. So they have to prove themselves. And so I think there are question marks there. And so I'll put that at a 6 or 7.
I think the other thing I'll add too is like they're gonna try to get in transition, clearly, like the Raptors. I think about that Brooklyn game when Brooklyn went in, that Ben Simmons return game in Philadelphia. And they just ran them out of the gym. And Kevin Durant went to the podium after and said, we know we can run on this team. So I think that's part of the reason why my concern might be a little lower, because I just don't think that they're going to trap themselves into this half-court game.
It is interesting looking at the Sixers roster. The Raptors do have a definitive advantage in terms of athleticism. Like, I think that's where, like, I was listening to Tyrese, speak yesterday at Raptors or Sixers practice, and he was talking about, look, all we got to do is control the glass, make sure we box out, and keep them out of transition, and then we're good. And I'm thinking about, I was like, generally speaking, that is how you would approach the Raptors, right? You take away the possession battles, you take away the transition, you probably will beat this team just because their half-court offense is just, so-so. But can you do that? Like, it doesn't change anything in the series just because it's more of a playoff game and it's more intense. That doesn't mean these advantages melt away. It doesn't mean that suddenly Georges Niang is the same level athletic as Chris Boucher.
Yeah, you have to take those advantages away. They no, but like, come on,
got the same athleticism.
It ain't about you. You've said this. It ain't about you. No, but like, I think that's a really good point because people love to just use the fact that, hey, it's going to be a playoff environment.
So therefore, you can't get on the glass. You can't get on transition.
The other team has to have the able bodies on the roster to take away those advantages. The coaches on the other end of the roster on the other team have to be able to make those adjustments and take those advantages away. And those are the biggest questions about the Sixers, right? Do they have the roster and do they have the coaching staff to actually take away the advantages that the Raptors have? I think that's really like the crux of this series. Like that's it.
I think on some level, the Raptors aren't used to being in this position where it's like you are the bad matchup for the other team.
Oh, I love it.
We're
so good.
We're so used to being on the other side of it.
People used to look at us like food.
Yeah,
we
were food, right? Even times when we were the higher seed, like it didn't matter. And now this series is genuinely one where you look at the matchups and the Raptors have the advantages. And so it's a little hard to take in, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, it's nice. It's genuinely nice. It was a nice change of pace. Okay, point of anxiety number 4. Scotty Barnes is a rookie, and he's being asked to start in the playoffs and guard Joel Embiid and James Harden at times. What if he melts? He is a rookie, after all. He might be rookie of the year, which, by the way, a lot of votes are going his way.
Howard Beck as well. Shout-outs Howard Beck.
Really?
Friend of the program.
3 out of 4 Oh, man, we did some good campaigning. Oh, man.
Y'all did
it's not about you.
It's not about us. No, it's about democracy.
V, Scotty Barnes, rookie, first-time NBA playoffs. Anxiety ranking.
I'm going to go back to a 2 or 3. I think he's going to be pretty special. He's been special all season. And you look at the way he leveled up since the All-Star break, he's getting better and better. And I think someone I think back to is almost, that rookie season for Dwayne Wade, where he had a very good rookie season. And then the playoffs came, and it was like, whoa.
It's real.
It's his team now.
And I think Scotty Barnes could do something like that this postseason.
Yeah, I'm with you. But I'm gonna put this at like a 5. I think.
Okay.
I think we might see, because I think about the regular season, we think about all the great things that Scotty's done, right? Like immediately comes to my mind like those games against Brooklyn when like there wasn't a single play called for him, right? And I think he set a career high. or even his performance in that road win against Phoenix, what he did in crunch time.
3 steals.
But then I think about like the way he guarded Luka Doncic in that loss in Dallas.
Would he put a hand down?
Yeah, I think about when, you played me some tape earlier this week before the show.
Yeah.
Just about the Sixers-Raptors matchups in the regular season where we've seen him not being able to make the right rotations, on defense. And we know that the Raptors defense is only effective if all 5 guys are on a string, right?
Of course, yeah.
And, like, is there going to be a game maybe in the series where, they just leave him open and he takes like 11 threes and he makes
We
like
saw that
2?
in the Kyle Lowry return game.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, or are you going to see a game where maybe he's not as focused on defense and these things are going to get magnified, right?
Yeah.
Like you give up a big 3 against the Sixers in the regular season in the fourth quarter, it's whatever, right? It's another game. You do that when it's a 3-point game and you really need that defensive possession on the road.
Yeah.
Like we're going to be talking about this for like 15 minutes the next day.
Yeah.
So I do think those mistakes are going to be there, but I'm with V though. Like there's just so much talent there. Like there's so much talent there that talent alone, he's going to have a huge impact on this series.
Yeah.
And wouldn't be surprised if he like wins a game for the Raptors.
That too, yeah. I mean, that's probably why he's like a bit of a wild card in this sense, because like I can see ways in which it goes really right and ways it goes really wrong for him. To me, I think the big thing is like maintaining your confidence, and I think for a young guy like this, like you just don't fully know. The spotlight and the intensity is going to be huge. But having said that, what we've seen from Scottie this year is that he hasn't shied away from these moments. He's taking it head on, and you can only assume that he's going to take that same approach. But I mean, you never know. That's the thing. You have a bad game in the playoffs, and it's like 2 straight days of just like magnified, intense pressure on like those 5 or 6 mistakes that you made. So how do you handle that mentally? How do you keep your confidence? How do you come back with the same approach or even a better approach to get yourself out of the slump? That's something that a lot of young players have to go through as well. So
yeah, you might see. I mean, I think that's a really good point because like he might have a really nerve-wracking first half in game 1. And he might just come out and dominate the third quarter, and it's a non-story, right?
That's a regular Scottie game.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But or maybe does that stretch through, the first 3-4 games of this series? It might be a non-story after game 1, honestly.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, point of contention number 5, anxiety point number 5. This is probably the last one because I got to save some time for this media voucher quiz that we're going to do. Number 5, foul calls heavily favor the Sixers.
9. Yeah.
No, I don't just mean that they get more calls, because I think objectively they will get more calls. I mean the games are refereed in a way in which it does not favor the Raptors. For example, let's say the whistle's super tight.
Yeah, no, my concern is a 9.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's a 9.
Oh, okay, all right.
I just think, maybe it's because I've sat beside you for every single game this season.
Oh, man.
Or maybe there's just a history of, the Raptors maybe not getting the favorable whistle at certain times in big games in the postseason. No, this is a huge concern for me because this is how the Sixers are going to be able to generate a lot of their offense, right? And the other concern for me too is like this means that the Raptors will be in foul trouble. And that would be the big downfall for me for the Raptors. If you've got like Pascal and Fred's got 3 fouls, at the middle of the second quarter, and suddenly you have to scramble and find your rotation. So this is the highest one for me.
I'll probably go with about a 5 or 6. I do think the Sixers are going to get to the line a ton.
Yeah, but that's different from...
Exactly. What you're asking is it actually going to be, a bias towards Philly? And I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. So I think the Raptors will have to set the tone early in games of like, hey, this is how physical we're going to be. And when the referees say, hey, that's the baseline, that's what we're going to accept. Either way, the Raptors will adjust accordingly. I think one of the things that they've done really well at since they've turned their season around, the first 30 games of the season, they were about 27th in foul rate. And they were putting everyone on the line.
Yeah.
The last 50 games where they went 34-17, they moved up to about 16th or 17th, which is about league average. And so I think they've learned a lot from it. Obviously, a lot of that is just like chemistry and understanding the defensive schemes and being positionally in the right place. And I think that's what a lot of this series is going to come down to, right? Putting that pressure on Embiid, on Harden to be passers and then scrambling over to help wherever they need to.
Yeah. To this point, Nick Nurse and that one challenge he has per game might be the most important thing Nick does all series. That challenge, when he uses it, at what point during which game, it's going to be huge. And it's not just Nick, by the way. because a lot of the times the Raptors have an assistant coach who's literally watching with a laptop. And when Nick gestures over to the bench and says, should I review it or not? That challenge now applies to the assistants. I'm telling you, everyone's under pressure in the playoffs. If the assistants don't have that reviewing time
right now. Why are you? I'm not Evan Scott, by the way.
Are you sure?
When did they release the refs? By the way, when do they announce the refs? Is it usually on game day? Is that when we find out?
For the game, they've announced who the refs are going to be for the first round in general.
Okay, but they haven't assigned the specific games, right?
Okay. All right.
I would love to get your thoughts on the 3 refs that are gonna, whoever it is, for game 1.
All right, real quickly before we get to this quiz. No, come on, man, please. But you got a prediction for the series?
I have the Raptors winning in 6 games.
6. Okay. All right, put that down, Alex. All right, we have come time to the quiz, and listen, you guys both know what this is, but for people watching at home, this is the I'm going to cover up, I guess, some key details so people can't reproduce this one, but it is the Raptors media meal voucher that we always talk about.
We have referenced many times.
$25. This is like the Willy Wonka golden ticket, really, right?
Yep.
And
to my favorite restaurants, Scotiabank
exactly.
Arena.
It's a gift card to your favorite restaurant, okay? Yeah. And I'm going to put this on the line, and I'm going to put you guys to a quiz, and I'll see which one has the most correct answers. And it's based on Svi Mihalik and his 3-point streak, which obviously Alex has covered in depth. What's the stat, Alex? Go ahead and say it again.
Yes, I think we were just tracking if Svi was going to be able to hit 3 threes in a single game this season.
Yeah.
And he had a chance in the final regular season game on the last possession.
But he missed.
Had a corner 3 and missed. So, yeah.
So, Svi has made 41 threes this entire season. He's played in 50-plus games.
It's going to be so...
And I'm going to ask you guys both to answer individually, and then I'll tell you guys the right answer or not. So, the higher total between Svi threes or Goran Dragic minutes played for the Toronto Raptors this season. Alex?
Goran's minutes are higher.
Okay. V?
You said he's made 41 threes?
41 threes
so,
this whole season.
Yeah, I'll go over.
Okay, you're both right. It's good. 1-1 so far. Okay, good. More.
Why is he so serious?
A higher total. Svi threes.
on a game show.
Svi threes or Tremont Waters minutes for the Toronto Raptors this season.
Svi threes.
Yeah, I will go Svi threes as well.
Incorrect.
What? How many minutes?
You guys both lost. Tremont Waters played 42 minutes as a member of the Toronto Raptors this season.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, right? Including against the Philadelphia 76ers in one of these games, by the way.
And they still almost won 50 games.
No, he's at 42 minutes. Svi was at 41 threes. All right, next question. A higher total between Svi threes or Kem Birch free throws made?
Oh, Svi's got to be
higher. Svi threes.
Yeah?
Yep.
You're wrong. Kem Birch has made 53 free throws. Guys, come on. Have some credit. Come on, Come on, man. It's a big man. He plays in the paint. He's going to get fouled a lot near the basket.
I mean, I didn't think he'd played that much.
Yeah, that's tricky, man.
No, Nick played him a lot.
He's missed a lot of time.
You're tricking us, man.
No, I'm telling you, man. Kem Birch has made more free throws than Svi has hit threes.
I could not be working.
You guys are underselling Svi.
I could not be working this hard for $25.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Next question. A higher total between Svi threes or Fred VanVleet offensive rebounds on the season?
Fred offensive rebounds.
That's very good. Okay, I thought this would be a trick question. Fred's had 44 offensive rebounds this season.
Damn.
So that's more than Svi's 41.
That's like 1 week for Chris.
Okay, so you guys are still tied. You guys are at 2-2 now. Next question. Svi threes or Precious Achua threes?
Precious.
Precious has made more.
Precious threes.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
What's in the
I don't know, man. He had an early lead. This was looking very much in Svi's favor.
This guy's auditioning for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Right,
who wants to be a $25 recipient?
I'm really putting you guys
sure you want to lock that answer in?
Yeah. All right, fine. Yeah. Okay. Precious made 56 threes. All right. More Svi threes or Chris Boucher turnovers this season? It's a tricky one. Yeah.
Svi threes. More.
You know what? Just to be different, I'll go with Boucher.
That's a smart man right there. Chris Boucher, 42 turnovers.
All right,
one more than Svi.
I'll buy my own
It's okay.
meal.
You got 3 more questions, and we got 2 more minutes to fill.
Okay.
More Svi threes or Thad Young assists?
With
Thad
the
Young,
Raptors.
With the Raptors, yeah, with the Raptors.
More. I'm gonna go with Thad Young assists.
I'll say that Svi has made more threes.
All right, we're tied again. Thad Young has 45 assists as a member of the Raptors.
I think he played like 26 games. That averages out.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That post-trade. Anyway, all right.
Shouts to Thad Young.
2 more questions left to decide the $25 voucher here. Svi threes or Justin Champagnie offensive rebounds?
Ooh.
You know, all Champagne does is come in the game and get offensive
Okay,
rebounds.
I'm gonna let V go first.
I'm gonna.
So, encounter.
He had a decent stretch where he was playing minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go Champagne offensive rebounds.
I'm gonna go Svi.
There you go. It's
Let's
Svi.
go.
Champagne's got 37.
Okay, so I'm up one with one to go.
That's right. Last one here.
Okay.
Svi threes or Gary Trent Jr. threes just on Fridays. Only one day of the week.
I'm gonna go Gary.
Gary?
You have to go the other way.
Yeah, I have to go the other way or I can't get back.
Unbelievable. Gary Trent Jr. has made 53s on just Fridays alone.
Yeah, I'm not
which is more than
surprised
Svi's total
that
for the
it's
whole
Gary,
season.
but I have
So,
to do it.
Alex, you have won. Congratulations.
Thank you.
A gift card to your favorite restaurant. And that does it for us today. I'm your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Make sure you find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. And please rate and review our show. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday between 1 and 3 p.m. Thanks again to my producer and co-host, Alex Wong. To our guests, Harrison Sanford and Vivek Jacob. To our board producer, Derek Randale, and Jennifer Rolnick for helping us behind the scenes with the YouTube stream. I will talk to you soon.